you're not the leader, and you have an organization that doesn't have that accountability, like your example, it kind of is what it is. How do you start to instill some of those techniques?
She said, what if you're not the leader, you have the organization that has that issue, and you want to try to instill those techniques? I have to be honest, it's difficult. I mean, that's really, really difficult, because basically what you're saying is the culture is not supporting accountability. And that's what this is all about, because that's the way to do it effectively. It's not just a one-on-one, like, okay, and sometimes you will have those one-on-one conversations, but it's how can I change the culture? So it's an expectation. And so what you're saying is we don't have that culture, but you're trying to make that change. In general, I will offer this, though, because as I train and I provide tips and techniques, invariably someone will say, well, what if I'm not leading the session? Or what if I'm not the team leader? I'm just a participant. There's still ways you can influence the environment, certainly. I mean, haven't we all been in a session where the person who's leading it is kind of all over the place? But then there's somebody else in the group who says, well, you know what? Maybe we should prioritize those. Why don't we all write it on Post-its and then stick them up there? Maybe that's a good process. And then they'll leave it, yeah, why don't we do that, okay? So there's certainly, you can still do that. Another technique that I use sometimes to not intimidate the leader, because sometimes you're a little concerned about that, you don't want to be perceived as trying to take over, is turn it into a question. So instead of saying, hey, I think we should do X, you say, well, gosh, it seems like we're having this recurring issue with people, not, running into problems and our due date slipping, and gosh, it seems like we've lost about 2 weeks in our cycle. I'm just wondering, maybe we should have a conversation around that, or, maybe we should develop some sort of ground rule around that for the future. I mean, what does everybody else think about that? So you form it as a question, but then what's the second part?
What does everybody else think?
What does everybody else think? You throw it out to the group. Why do you think I suggest throwing it out to the group? So you get that support, because I promise you, if there's dysfunctional behavior going on your team, do you think you're the only one noticing it? No. And haven't you seen that situation where nobody says anything, but then as soon as one person says something about it, everybody jumps on it like vultures? You're kind of like, where were y'all before? So a lot of times all you need to do is give some voice to it, and then other people will jump in, and then what that does is that really does place more pressure on that team leader to address the issue if they're not addressing it. So I definitely do think you can do things. You can be effective, you can ask those questions, you can make suggestions, you can throw things out there, and hopefully the rest of the organization will kind of respond well to that and will come around. But leadership support would certainly help, wouldn't it? Mm-hmm. I